Hi Dom, as you know this week's review is Wuthering Heights. As you also know, I hated this book the first and last time I read it, about 6 years ago. Now when I say hated, I don't mean I hated it. I meant that I detested, despised, abhorred, was repelled by, and loathed this book. But Alex, yes Dom? What do you think of Wuthering Heights now that you've reread it for this review? What an excellent question, Dom. The answer is I pretty much feel the same way, with some exceptions. Although I am glad I reread this book, because now I'm able to better understand why I hated it and hate it now. Because I'm pretty sure 14-year-old me was like, this is hard. It has a lot of big words and a lot of characters that I need to keep track of, and I just don't like it. It's stupid. Whereas 20-year-old me is like, wow, Heathcliff is an asshole. Wow, Catherine is a huge bitch. They make the worst likable characters for a couple of all time. For those of you who don't know the horrible story of Wuthering Heights, it's this. It's a story within the story sort of deal. A gentleman rents a house in the English countryside, and the housekeeper tells him the story of the people who live there and at the neighboring house, Wuthering Heights. So the main characters in the story are Hindley Earnshaw, his sister Catherine, and Heathcliff. Hindley and Catherine's father brings Heathcliff home for one of his travels. He was this poor urchin kid who lived on the streets of Liverpool or something. And the father basically adopts him as one of his children. So Heathcliff and Catherine start getting along really well right from the start, but Hindley hates Heathcliff and torments him and tortures him throughout their entire childhood, which according to the housekeeper turns Heathcliff into an evil monster. When Heathcliff and Catherine are around 16, it becomes apparent that they're in love with each other, but through charming miscommunication, Heathcliff believes that Catherine doesn't love him and leaves. At which point, Catherine marries the only other guy in the neighborhood, Edgar Linton. So they all live happily until 3 years later when Heathcliff returns, and he demands revenge on Hindley for ruining his childhood, and on Edgar Linton for stealing his childhood sweetheart away, and probably on Catherine a little bit for marrying some other guy. Then things start happening really fast. Catherine dies, leaving behind a daughter named Kathy, who, you guessed it, Heathcliff wants to get revenge on for killing her mother during childbirth. Then Hindley dies from drinking himself to death, at which point Heathcliff takes his revenge by stealing Wuthering Heights away from Hindley's son. Also, Edgar Linton's sister marries Heathcliff, then runs away really quickly because she realizes that he's an asshole, and she has a son who she names Linton. Fast forward 17 really boring years. Heathcliff basically imprisons Kathy in Wuthering Heights to force her to marry his son so that he can get her father's land when her father dies or something, and therefore exacting his revenge on the both of them. Mwahahaha. Then things happen really quickly again. Heathcliff's son dies, Kathy is still imprisoned at Wuthering Heights, then Heathcliff dies, then Kathy and Hindley's son fall in love and get married. Keep in mind that both the guys Kathy marries are her cousins. Ew. Now my problem with the book is not that the story is confusing. It's that the story isn't told properly, in my opinion. This leads me to my first problem with the book. I don't know why the author chose the story within a story method. It doesn't really enhance the plot, and I think it would be a lot more interesting if we could tell what the characters were thinking and not just what the housekeeper saw firsthand. Plus, Mr. Lockwood, the English gentleman at the beginning, is so boring. Like, why do we need to know about him? He's not important to the plot in any way. Second problem with the book: the relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine. Once again, I have to ask, why did these two people fall in love? There's no redeeming qualities about either of them. I mean, Heathcliff is this demonic person who takes revenge on anyone who slighted him in the least. For example, he basically ruins Kathy's life for just being born. And Catherine, on the other side, is just so spoiled and snobbish that I don't even like her or feel sorry for her in any way. And yet the whole book revolves around this timeless love that they have for one another. And I just don't know why we should care about these horrible people and how they love each other so much. Third problem with the book. This also has to do with the way the story was told. As I said, if the story hadn't just been told from the housekeeper's point of view, I think it would have been a lot more entertaining to read. Because reading about the housekeeper going through about 30 years of backstory from Mr. Lockwood gets kind of dull at times. It's like, And then for 10 years we just sat around and Kathy got older and then the master started getting sick and that was a really exciting time for me because I really stepped up my game as a housekeeper. Cool. That being said, Mrs. Dean, the housekeeper, is probably my favorite character. Just because she's the only one who has any common sense in the book at all. She's really the only one who's like, oh my god, Heathcliff has gone crazy. And, tries to call him out on his shit, but doesn't really work. But hey, at least she tries. All the other characters are really annoying. Except for Kathy, but that's probably just because she's not as annoying as her mom was. So my final thought on this book is, Dom, why do you like this book so much? Because, Alex, it's such a wonderful representation of how love distorts everything about our personalities and how we just want to take a revenge on anyone who takes that love away from us. Just kidding, Dom. I don't know if that's actually why you like the book. I'm just guessing. Altogether, I would give it 0 ill-tempered people out of 5 ill-tempered people. Dom, I look forward to your next review, where you will be reviewing Catch-22 as a punishment for not posting your video for a week and a half. And I look forward to hearing my punishment for not posting my review for 2 days. And remember, Wuthering Heights is the worst book I've ever read, so bring it on. Studying law. Making a responsible choice for my future. Being a lawyer, I'd better be awesome.